Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever wondered how poor risk management literally wipes out billions of dollars in shareholder value every single year? Today, we're going to bridge the gap between dry, academic auditing theory and dynamic, real-world corporate application. If you're stepping into the world of accounting and auditing, you've probably heard a ton of buzzwords thrown around. Well, today, we are breaking those buzzwords down.
Let's kick things off with a pretty wild question. How exactly do massive multinational corporations navigate global pandemics, sudden market crashes, and targeted cyber attacks without completely collapsing? I mean, the answer isn't just blind luck. It's actually a highly structured operational system of defense. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll build a rock-solid foundation of enterprise risk management, or ERM. Then, we'll take a tour through a gallery of 14 real-world risks that every business faces. And finally, we'll lock it all down by seeing how King V governance principles act as the ultimate corporate shield.
All right, jumping right into Section 1, the foundations of ERM. Let's unpack the core mechanics of risk management.
So, what actually is ERM? Well, enterprise risk management exists because businesses operate in a world of pure chaos. ERM is the vital operational engine that management uses every single day to protect the company's various capitals. And we're talking financial, human, and reputational capital. It's not just about reacting when a disaster hits. It's a proactive, fundamental part of strategic decision-making to ensure the business actually survives and creates long-term value.
Look at this step-by-step logic. It's an endless, continuous loop. Step 1, you must identify the threat. Step 2, assess its likelihood and its impact. Step 3, prioritize it against all the other threats out there. Step 4, formulate a response. And Step 5, continuously monitor the outcome, because as we know, risks are constantly evolving.
Now, if you're a manager, how do you practically do this? You map it out. You weigh the probability of an event happening against its actual financial or reputational consequence to prioritize it. If a risk is highly likely and has a major impact, boom, it's critical. If it's unlikely and the impact is minor, it's low priority. This system literally prevents management from panicking over every little thing and focuses their resources on actual survival.
Okay, so once a risk is prioritized, management has to respond, and they really have four main options here. First, they can avoid the risk entirely, like maybe just pull out of a dangerous market completely. Second, they can reduce it by putting strong internal controls in place, like installing top-tier cybersecurity software. Third, they can transfer that financial burden to a third party by buying insurance or hedging currencies. Or fourth, if the cost of fixing it outweighs the potential loss, they can just choose to accept it and absorb those minor fluctuations.
Moving right along to Section 2, the real-world risk gallery. Let's see how this builds into a massive matrix of 14 specific risks hiding in every single corporate corner. Now, this right here is absolutely crucial, and honestly, it's a major stumbling block for a lot of students. We need to draw a hard line between business risk and audit risk. Business risk happens to the company. It's a supply chain failing or a factory literally burning down. It threatens the company's survival. Audit risk, on the other hand, happens to the auditor. It's the danger that the external auditor completely fails to detect a material misstatement caused by those business risks and then issues the wrong audit opinion. So definitely don't confuse the two.
Let's start grouping these business risks, starting with the financial cluster. Financial risk happens when a company, like a bank, relies way too heavily on debt and stretches its capital thin. Management has to reduce this by restructuring debt. Then there's liquidity risk, which is a severe cash flow crisis. Imagine that same bank suddenly unable to pay our cash to a line of panicking customers. They respond by holding liquid asset buffers. Exchange rate or currency risk hits hard when a multinational company imports heavy machinery from Europe and the local currency suddenly plummets, literally doubling their costs overnight. Management usually transfers this risk using forward contracts. And market risk? That's when consumer demand just evaporates because of a new trend, leaving a retailer with warehouses full of unsold stock. The fix there is agile market research and diversifying products.
Zooming out, let's look at the macro cluster. These are massive risks driven by the broader environment. Economic risk happens when a global recession hits and consumers just completely stop buying luxury goods. Management responds by reducing costs and building strong cash reserves. Inflation risk is kind of a silent killer. Rising steel and plastic costs slowly eat away at a manufacturer's profit margins. To combat this, management must lock in long-term supplier contracts. And country risk? That's when a multinational expands internationally only to face sudden regulatory shifts or political instability. Companies can't control these macro factors, but their ERM must respond by forming local joint ventures or buying political risk insurance.
Next up is the operational cluster. These are the day-to-day nightmares tied to internal processes. Operational risk could be a massive manufacturing plant halting production entirely due to a severe chemical leak. Management has to reduce this through rigorous safety protocols and staff training. Supply chain risk is just as devastating. Imagine a major retail brand completely running out of inventory right before the holidays because a key international supplier went bankrupt. Management's response here is to diversify suppliers across different continents and increase buffer stock.
Finally, we have the corporate conscience cluster, and these risks are super interconnected. If a tech company faces a data breach, it instantly triggers compliance risk for breaking privacy laws like GDPR, resulting in massive fines. Management mitigates this with strict data encryption, but this immediately bleeds into reputational risk, destroying public trust and crashing the stock price. The response? Deploying crisis PR teams. And hovering above it all is strategic risk. This is the big one. It's when a board makes a fundamentally flawed decision, like pouring millions into a physical rental business right as the world shifts entirely to digital streaming. To manage strategic risk, you need thorough feasibility studies and continuous market analysis.
All right, now that we've toured the chaos and really understand these risks, let's head into Section 3, King v. Governance Integration. Let's see how corporate governance acts as the ultimate shield. This brings us to King v., specifically Principle 8. This principle makes it totally clear risk cannot be an afterthought left to middle management. It's not just a box-ticking exercise. The governing body, the board, must integrate risk assessment directly into the very DNA of the organization's strategic planning. Whenever they set a goal, they absolutely must evaluate the risks of achieving that goal. Then we have King v. Principle 13, which ensures that the board takes ultimate responsibility for compliance governance, meaning they can't just claim ignorance if the company breaks the law. They have to actively oversee that management is successfully navigating the super complex web of global laws, environmental regulations, and safety standards.
So, what is the board actually doing all day? Well, they aren't micromanaging the daily risks on the factory floor. Instead, their duty is to approve the overarching ERM frameworks. They establish the organization's risk appetite, which is basically the maximum amount of risk the company is willing to stomach in pursuit of profit. And most importantly, they demand absolute accountability and transparent reporting from management.
I love this comparison because it perfectly captures the two-tier relationship you absolutely need to understand. ERM is the operational system. It's the engine driven by management, actively handling the chaos every single day. King v. Governance, on the other hand, is the steering wheel and the brakes, controlled by the board. It's the overarching framework that makes sure the operational engine is actually working, is heading in the right strategic direction, and is playing by the rules.
As we wrap up this explainer and you step further into the world of auditing and business leadership, I want to leave you with one final thought. When the next corporate titan falls, and history tells us there will definitely be one, will you look for the operational failure down on the factory floor, or will you look for the governance failure up in the boardroom? Understanding how ERM and governance overlap is your key to answering that exact question. Thanks for joining me today, and keep asking the hard questions.